Hey there, it's Dr. Lone. I'm here to break it down and blow your mind. Welcome to But I Don't Like Needles. Today we're going to talk about a very hot topic, and that is menopause. And I think I'm probably going to ruffle some feathers here. What if I told you that just like all the other transitions that I've discussed, including our menstrual cycle, that symptoms like brain fog and night sweats and hot flashes are not normal? That they are symptoms that something is out of balance and that you don't actually have to suffer from that? Aren't you frustrated when you go to your medical doctor and they say to you, yeah, it's menopause, it's perimenopause, and that's the end of the conversation? It shouldn't be the end of the conversation. What do you do about this? You're uncomfortable. You're miserable. Your body is telling you something is wrong, and no one is telling you why or what to do about it. And then moreover, what's the treatment for it? The treatment is either just suffer, it'll pass, which by the way, it doesn't for some people, or let me do what I've done in the past, which is to hijack the entire system and just throw more hormones at you externally. And we're not getting to the underbelly of what is out of balance, which eventually is going to come to our doorstep, and we're going to have to deal with it. Hormones are important. Hormones are a delicate balance. And if we do not address a metabolic issue that's affecting them, or we do not address the imbalance that's occurring, we're going to run into more troubles down the road, possibly related to cancer, as many cancers are related to estrogen and estrogen dominance and imbalances of hormones. So if you are suffering from any kind of symptoms around menopause, or you know a woman who is, this is the podcast that you want to listen to and you want to share. Believe it or not, I'm going to give a little shout out to social media. I never thought in a million years I would say this. I can't stand social media. It is detrimental. It's detrimental to our youth. It's detrimental to our politics and to our health overall. However, in this one case, I will say that I am grateful for it. And that is around perimenopause, women's health. Women have gotten a voice and anyone can hear it, and it's fantastic. And it's putting a spotlight on things that have been going on with women that have been going on for decades, generations, and nobody has even talked about it. Just like our menstrual cycle, where no one understands what's natural, what's normal, what's abnormal. Same thing around perimenopause. No discussion about it. Just suffer in silence. Deal with it. Every month you have pain. Just deal with that. It's just part of life as a woman. No, guess what? It's not. It's not. In fact, the symptoms that are talked about in perimenopause don't even occur in other countries. Take that in for a second. What's happening there? Why is it in China that there are no night sweats, but it's a United States symptom that is prevalent and everyone talks about it and it's debilitating, it's miserable? What's going on there? Yes, we can talk about biomedically, and we will. And you can Google that up and, get many different takes on what is occurring in regards to regulating our temperature and our hypothalamus and estrogen and progesterone. And I will talk about that. But I also am going to talk about what's going on through the lens of TCM and East Asian medicine. And I'm going to introduce a concept and some ideas that make you go, huh? And this is my explanation because this is what I see in my clinic. I've been working with women's health and endocrinology and fertility and now perimenopause for over a decade. And I have seen this and I notice that what I do to balance this out, and then all of a sudden they are fine. Nobody's having those problems, those issues. It declines. What am I doing that's going to address all of these symptoms? I'm going to talk about that. So first of all, just like every other transition and just like anything that's occurring naturally in the body, we're not broken. We're not busted. It's not just something like, oh, that's just something you have to suffer with. It's a sign that something is wrong, something is imbalanced, something is off. And we can continue to just put a Band-Aid on it, i.e. throw hormones at it externally, but in the long run, it's going to come knocking on our door. So whether you put a Band-Aid on it when you were having a menstrual cycle with a birth control pill because you're having miserable pain and discomfort and irregularities, or maybe you even had cysts or fibroids. And instead of getting to the underbelly of why that's happening, we throw you on exogenous hormones. But then when you try to get pregnant, knock, knock, it came a knocking on the door because something was wrong. Same thing with perimenopause. Now we've gotten through all of those transitions and now we're at perimenopause. And again, now we're having these severe symptoms and we're wondering why. Or worse, our fibroids have returned. They're larger than ever. And now we're removing the uterus entirely and having major abdominal surgery. And before I go too deeply down the rabbit hole, I want to say this. If you know any women that are suffering from debilitating symptoms around perimenopause, this could have been happening for a few months, but for some women, it happens for over a decade. Please share this podcast and get to your nearest acupuncturist, and I'm going to tell you why. Obviously, you have social media, you have Google, so you've gone through and you understand what's occurring around perimenopause. But I will just recap. Obviously, we're born with all the eggs that we're supposed to be born with. And over time, every month we ovulate an egg and then those reduce. During that time, the estrogen is supposed to be supporting that follicular growth, which encases that egg before it ovulates. As we decline with the amount of eggs that we have, the AMH, the anti-Mullerian hormone, which is in charge of controlling all of those follicles that we are initially born with, all of those eggs that are wanting to ovulate all at once. We can't have that. We only have one at a time. So we have this anti-Mullerian hormone that is very high, and we need a lot of it because we need to control all of these follicles that want to ovulate at once, and we just want one egg. And as we decline with the amount of eggs, we have less follicles and less AMH, and we will in turn have less estrogen. And then on the flip side, once you have ovulated, the corpus luteum, which is the casing that holds that egg once it's ovulated, will put out progesterone. And that affects the luteal phase and the latter half of our cycle. And that will decline as well, as we will have, again, eventually no ovulation and no corpus luteum and no progesterone being released. What are hormones? Hormones are fat. And it is very important to acknowledge that our liver governs fats. I've talked about our liver a million times over the podcast. It's such an important organ. It does so much for us. It is extremely busy. It makes blood. It cleans the system out. It's important to understand that fats are a huge part of hormones, that hormones are fat. Because as we decline with estrogen, we then are having this fat imbalance, and we need fats. Our fats is yin in Chinese medicine. Yin and yang is the balance. And so we will talk again about that in a second, about the TCM. You look at this, but for now, understand that the liver is doing all of that. So let's talk about the TCM view of this. When it comes to the 5-element theory, wood and metal, which is liver and lung channels, are very tightly attached to each other. They are interdependent. The metal controls the wood, the lung, and is controlling the liver. The liver, if it gets deficient, will affect the lung. If the liver is backed up, it will affect the lung. The liver relates to our fats and our hormones, and the lung relates to our immune system and our skin and how we circulate and vent out toxicity and metabolize fluids and hormones. The lymphatic system relates to the lung channel. In regards to the liver and where it works and when it works at night between 1 and 3 a.m. That is when we are sleeping. That's why when you look at kids and their livers are constantly busy because they're constantly growing and they're making blood and they are just very active and they will flip and flop. They say the Hun wanders at night. You'll see them just constantly moving and flipping and flopping at night. That's that working overtime. They're very livery, we would say, in East Asian medicine. A lot of movement needs to happen. lot of activity happens with the liver. It's an active organ. And this is, if there's anything encumbering the liver, then it will occur and keep you up at night. People will wake in the night between 1 and 3. That's just a little message to you. Something's not going well with the liver. And what could be encumbering the liver? At this point, your medical doctor would say, okay, well then let's run your liver panels, your ALT, your AST. And if that's not out of alignment, your liver's fine. But that's not really the case for East Asian medicine. We are looking at before it gets to a fatty liver situation, that by the time it's showing on those panels, that's pretty severe. And they might be slightly elevated or they might not be. But the key here is to catch it before they get elevated. But I do run those panels to make sure that we're not in that level of severe where we could be at a fatty liver. Then it would show some heightened enzymes of ALT and AST. But your liver could be encumbered and have difficulty and not working at best and not showing yet on the liver panel. I have talked about this in the past and I will repeat. There are many hormone deregulating and environmental toxins that interfere with our liver and its function. Its function to make hormones and to balance those with those fats, and then also when it comes to cleaning the body out, if we have too many things that back up that can't metabolize. Our bodies have the ability to metabolize a lot of these estrogen. It only takes about a 24-hour period to metabolize estrogen in the body, and it does through the urine, and it goes out the body that way. But if you have xenoestrogens, which are external estrogens, and we have a lot of these environmental factors, what you put in your body, the skin products, the hair products, the plastics that we package our food in, the hormones that are injected into our foods, the preservatives that are put in our food, the types of the hydrogenated oils and the things that can't be metabolized, that are sitting and sometimes can take, pesticides as well, can take up to 40 years, decades to metabolize, are now encumbering and backing up the liver, or they are pocketing itself into the body as fats. You'll see this as little skin tags. You'll see this as little lipomas. East Asian medicine recognizes that this is a metabolic problem and an issue. And you'll notice that they lie on the skin. A lot of these lipomas and the little skin tags are happening on the skin. And what is that about in East Asian medicine? That relates to our lung channel. Our lung channel, which happens to occur in 3 to 5 a.m., which is the second part of the nighttime that we should be sleeping, relates to our skin. And our skin is the lung channel. The lung channel relates to our immune system. Why? Because we vent out toxicity and pathogens and through our skin, specifically hormone deregulating. For example, you go out and you drink a bunch of alcohol, you're sweating that out the next day, right? It's coming out through the skin. If you are having garlic and onion on a positive side, we love those herbs, those foods, because they're utilized to help expel out the skin. So if you are getting sick early onset, we give you those herbs because it sweats it out through the skin. The goal is to sweat it out. When you have fever, yes, this regulates your temperature, but also you are pathogen-wise getting this out through the skin. You're sweating, break a sweat, you break the fever. It's a very important aspect of our immune system, and the skin is a big part of that. And on top of that, hormones in East Asian medicine, and in my personal take on this, relate to the fluid metabolism, the water metabolism that relates to the lung channel. When we have estrogen that is not metabolizing correctly, it kind of pockets itself in the skin, but then it can also be a fluid retention and a puffiness that you will see around these transitions. You'll hear people say, yeah, just get puffy if I eat. In our country, for example, people are like, I can't have bread, and it's not necessarily the bread. It might not even be the gluten. It's actually the preservatives and what we're doing and how we're processing the bread that your body cannot metabolize that is very estrogenic. And now we are getting puffy, we're getting water retention, and these things are not metabolizing out of the body and out of the urine as we should. And you can tell from your urine even how you're metabolizing estrogen. That's how we test it. In fact, there's 3 different pathways that I'm aware of. One is very healthy. That's what we want. The estrogen is metabolizing correctly and it's going out through the urine the right way. And then there's another way, second way, that is not so great. And then there's a third way that is a sign or as a risk factor for estrogen-related cancers. So this is why it's so important, and women are at risk because of this estrogen, this delicate estrogen balance, is making sure that as we go through these transitions, and oftentimes these things rear their ugly heads around these transitions, because estrogen is supposed to be metabolized out of the body, guys. We're supposed to be, for the most part, done with all of this estrogen. We have some that comes in naturally through phytoestrogens, and they support us in that way, but not any of these xenoestrogens and all these exogenous hormone deregulating factors that are being pocketed stuck like a swamp, and it just festers, causing all sorts of inflammation and pain, because estrogen can be inflammatory. It's acidic. It affects our gut. It affects our body chemistry. And when it's not in balance, all of these things go haywire. So we really want to pay attention to those 2 organ systems. So I wanted to make that comment, because if you're waking up in the night and you are sweating at 1 to 3 or 3 to 5, that's giving you a little direction as to where to focus, i.e. liver, i.e. estrogen metabolic issues. Okay. And what do we do about that? Well, first and foremost, just understand that this is not only decades of catch up in your lifestyle, but even your mother's. Right? So your mother, when these things were, a lot of these chemicals and preservatives and all of these fast foods and all the things that are added to our lifestyle and our culture here in the United States, it started with our parents, and they had children, and that goes over the placenta into the child, i.e. like my mother went into me, and I was born not only with just me, but my eggs were with me. So generationally, every child, my mother was affecting not only me, but my children because of my eggs that I was born with. So it's a generational thing that is accumulating over time. So we have some serious catch up to do. First and foremost, when people come in with all of these hormone irregularities, is to clean that liver and the kidney out and help metabolically support those organ functions. And that has to sometimes be done with, I personally do in my clinic, some sort of metabolic cleanse. We do supplementation that help to metabolize estrogen. But in the long run, diet changes and the herbs are the most beneficial. Chinese herbs are about yin and yang. Yin is estrogen, and there are qi tonics that will trigger that estrogen cascade in the body in a healthy way. Phytoestrogens diet, not only are they estrogenic, but they also help metabolize estrogen. That's what they're meant to do. So having more of those in our diet. And what are those phytoestrogens? In case you don't know, soy, chickpeas. You can Google up phytoestrogens, and all those that people were so afraid to take because they were afraid of the estrogen. But you have to understand they're different because, again, they're from the earth and they're from the planet, and our bodies are meant to metabolize them. So yes, they're estrogenic, but along with that, they give you the ability to metabolize estrogen. Having fats in our diet, we need fat. We need to replace the yin, the estrogen that we are losing, and we need to put that in foods high in omega-3s, such as avocado and salmon and flaxseed, not whole seed, but ground is best to be absorbed, and MCT oils. Coconut is one of my favorite oils to put in my body, on my body, skin, hair, food, etc. Needs fats, good fats, our myelin sheath that runs across in the neurons and help us circuit from one neuron to the next. That is crucial to have fats. And the body, the ligaments and the cartilages and all of this nutritive blood and aspect to our body needs fat. The liver needs fat. And so I cannot stress that enough for women that are going through perimenopause. So when they come to me, the first thing we do is that major kind of overhaul to clean the system out. And then from there, we have to change our diet, and we have to change what we're putting in our system, in our bodies, and really listen to your body. If you go one night and all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm doing better, I'm not really having sweats at night, but now I had one night and I don't know why last night I had a hot flash or I had sweats and I woke up in the night. Well, look at what did you do that day? And I don't mean like just what did you drink or eat, but like, yeah, did you have alcohol? Did you have red meat out at some restaurant? Perhaps there was hormones in that. My girlfriend used to call those the meat sweats, and she just couldn't really do a lot of red meat in our country because of most of it being how it's preserved and what it's been pumped into it. That messed with her hormones. Did you go and get your hair dyed? You know, people don't think about those things. Oh, yeah, that did affect. Oh, I had some sort of beauty treatment and then I had sweats that night. Well, I got news for you. Many of those beauty treatments do have these hormone deregulating chemicals in them, and you will know it because you will sweat that night. And those are little red flags, and they are beautiful symptoms telling you that you are not imbalanced, something is off. And that is important to pay attention to. And then also that understanding that 3 to 5, and if that's when it's happening, that we need to work on your metabolic rate and how to metabolize the estrogen that is in your body. If you're overweight and you have all those lipomas, skin tags, and things like that, we will understand that you already have a history of this, and for some genetically, this can be a problem already. And then now going through these transitions, it'll be more difficult. So I highly recommend that you go and get tested, get your homocysteine tested. If you have MTHFR, methyl tetrahydrofolate resistance, this I have noticed has affected many women when it comes to their hormones, when it comes to fertility, when it comes to cancer, even with epilepsy and neurological dysfunction. There are studies showing that there's, relationship to this metabolic issue. And all it is you just need to take large doses of methylated folate. Again, talk to your acupuncturist and do your blood work. And when we're talking about blood work, I highly do recommend that you do a urine analysis to see what your metabolites are doing. And are you metabolizing estrogen properly? That's a good way to know. I do recommend doing your lab work and looking at your homocysteine levels. When it comes to hormones around this time, I don't think it's a great idea because it's fluctuating so tremendously around perimenopause. But I do want you to know that sometimes people think they're perimenopausal and they're not. What they are having is a hormone deregulation interfering with their cycle. I have had women come in, they're like, oh, I'm perimenopausal. We've done this cleanse. We've kind of gotten them acupuncture. We've done herbs. And lo and behold, their menstrual cycle is returned. And they're having their menstrual cycle again for a little while because it just interfered and they weren't in their proper balance. And I just want to come back to the understanding that this is not a disease. It shouldn't be a disease. So this should be a smooth transition. The memory should be helped with your diet and herbs that help with that nourishing the yin. Same thing with the movement, and the exercise will change and shift because our body is different and it shifts. Yes, we need to do more bone density support. In regards to menopause hormone therapy, I don't want to just sort of kick it out the door either. And I will acknowledge this, and I know there's a lot of conversation around this, and there's a lot of studies being done around this. And yes, there are studies that show that it's beneficial around perimenopause in regards to helping with the reduction of breast cancer around those 6-7 years at that time. There are no studies, though, that show that this is useful past those 6-7 years for breast cancer, number one. Number two, there have not been enough studies in regards to all different types of cancers. And I also think that this is an option for people that are going through severe, symptoms, and if they have tried these other avenues, it is a tool in the toolbox, and I do recommend it, and it can be very beneficial and useful. Obviously, we are forced into this situation as well if you've gone through any kind of cancer treatments, or if you've had your ovaries removed, then you are going to be utilizing this therapy, and we're grateful for that. But I will also say that if you have had a history of going through any cancer treatments, radiation, if you have had birth control, specifically some that really hijack the hormonal system in your body. If you have had severe bleeding and traumatic births and lots of medicated births, these are all going to contribute and add. If you've also gone through IVF, some women have gone through not one, not two, not three, but multiple cycles of IVF, and they are successful, which is a blessing. Some are not successful. But what I'm bringing up here is that there is an imbalance of very large amounts of hormones and a large fluctuation of egg retrieval that will then put the body in a hyperstimulated state sometimes. And then now we are withdrawing large amounts of eggs at once. And these hormones can also affect us in the long run. So these are also things to consider. That is new to our imbalance when it comes to this transition at menopause. So all the more reason for us to clean the slate and try to clean the liver, kidney, and start there, and then add in herbs and the diet and the exercise and see where we can go from there. That is my suggestion. That's my recommendation. And please don't underestimate the herbs that I'm talking about. Herbs are powerful, and they have very little side effects. And we have herbs that actually trigger that estrogen cascade. And so will nourish the body in that way of making estrogen. And we also have herbs that will help metabolically metabolize. And we have herbs that metabolize estrogen. We have herbs that help the body in general metabolize, and we have herbs that drain, like a diuretic, drain dampness and water retention. There are herbs that help move blood and work with any kind of pain or discomfort. There are herbs that help to relax the muscles and nourish the sinews to help with any kind of body pain. And that dampness as well, we have the herbs for are going to help reduce your inflammation for pain, specifically in different parts of the body, in different areas. There are herbs that specifically focus on fats and metabolizing fats and helping with the liver. There are herbs for headaches. There are herbs for our energy. There are also mushrooms, which I'm sure you've heard about, which have been around forever. And those are the new trend, adaptogens that help regulate these hormones. They will help with our sleep. Some of them act very testosterone-like in the body. There are some that, again, are going to trigger that estrogen cascade. So they are not to be underestimated. They are strong and powerful, but they need to be customized for you. And not every herb and every adaptogen is right for every human. So we want to make sure we find a provider that has training and expertise in customizing these formulas for you. And those will change and shift as you do through the transition. And finally, I just want to change our whole concept around menopause. I feel like people think it's this dreaded transition, that it's the end of something dramatic and terrible. But I implore you to look at it differently. It is a returning to self. Women have their menarche when they are around, 12, 13, 14 years old, thereabouts. Before that, we were just ourselves. We were just girls who were true to fully themselves. And then this next chapter comes in, and what happens is we get primarily focused for procreation. Our primary function becomes to make a human. And it's an intricate, intense, hormonal chapter that every month our body is going through to prepare to make a human. And that's wonderful, and it's amazing, and it's powerful, and it's beautiful. And if you have the privilege of having a child, that's a whole nother journey. However, when we get to the end of that chapter, That's the end of that chapter. And now we get to come back to self. We are no longer the primary focus to make another human and to carry another human and take care of another human. It's about taking care of ourselves. It's about going back to who we are without the fluctuations of the hormones every 28 days. It is happening in the middle of our life, not the end of our life. It's happening 45 to 55. And if all goes well, God willing, that we can stay and live on this planet till our 90s, which is what a lot of women are doing, we've got another 40 years left, right? And we get to focus primarily on our own health and be centered and clear without any of these transitions or fluctuations. So it's a celebration, and I want people to look at it that way. And it shouldn't be miserable, and it shouldn't be uncomfortable, and it should be a beautiful thing. And it's just entering our next chapter. So I hope that this podcast was useful, was helpful, was inspirational, and I do highly recommend, if you're having any of these symptoms, that you do your research, look into your history, talk to your mother, find out that history, and look at your diet. Look at what you're doing with your beauty regimen. Check your environment. Do you live next to a street with lots of construction that's constantly kicking up chemicals into your house? See an acupuncturist or a naturopath near you. Get your blood work done, but look at the right things and find out, where are you in this balance and how out of balance are you? And if you are out of balance, which we usually are, we all live out of balance. It's just a matter of how far out of balance we are, that balance of yin and yang. I like the metaphor that the airplane has its trajectory, it has its destination, and it doesn't stay on that path always directly. It bounces back and forth off the path, right to left. And we are just doing that through life. And all our goal is here is to not get so far off the path and try to stay as close to the path of balance. And we're going to cross over it, and we're going to be on it, and we're going to be in alignment, and then we're going to bounce out of it. And that's normal, and that's the ebb and the flow and the natural yin and yang of life. And that is what complementary medicine is. That is preventative care. That is East Asian medicine. The information provided in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only, and it is not intended as medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your health, medical treatment, or medication. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any medical institution.